Learn how to use the insert before method to insert a newly created HT element at an exact position. Let us look at how you can insert a newly created HTML element at an exact position inside a parent container rather than defaulting to the very end. So this example, I'm going to need two different elements. So the first element, let me use p tag for the first element, and let me give it an ID of p1. And let me say this is a paragraph. This is a paragraph. So I'll make another one and call it, give it an ID of P2. I'll say this is another paragraph. Now that I have done this, let me go inside my script section. Let's go inside the script section together. And the first thing we want to do is we want to create a blank p tag, or element, a blank p element, and the text node. Then bind them together. So how are we going to do this? So we want to create a blank p element. So the first thing to do is I'll make a variable and call it para for the first paragraph. And since I want to create a p element, so I'll make use of the create element method. And what do I want to create? I want to create a paragraph. So I'll pass in p as the paragraph. Now I need a text node. So let me make a text node and call document.create text node. Now, all these are built in JavaScript, not something that I'm making. You can see that I am just making them. I'm just calling them whenever I need them. So now, it is now time for me to bind them together. So how do I do the binding? I need another method called append child in order to be able to do this. So I will call the first variable para. I'll call this method append child and pass in my node inside it. So this way I've been able to bind them together. So moving on, what do we want to do next now? So we want to locate our parent container and then the target anchor child element. Locate the parent container and the target anchor child element. So let's make a variable and call it elements. And inside these elements, I want to get a parent container using the document.getElement by ID and passing it a demo of what I have in my HTML. So now that I've done this, now I need to target the anchor child element. So let me make a variable and call it child, and then just pass document.getElement by ID, and then we'll pass in P1 inside it. So I want to pass in P1 and not P2. So now I have done this. It is now time for me to inject the new paragraph precisely before the anchor child. So it is time for me to insert that new paragraph at the exact point where I have it. So I will just add another comment. Let me say inject the new paragraph precisely before the anchor child, or let me say anchor element. So how do you do that? Well, you call elements keyword and then this method insert before. So where do you want to insert? That is, where do you want your new element, your new child element to show. In my case, I want it to show before the first paragraph. So I'll just pass in that variable, which correspond to what I have in this place where I created the element. So I've created the element. Now I want to insert it to display it. And then child. And if you look at the screen, I think you should see it that this is new, which happens to be what we have here as the text node for the paragraph, comes before what we have inside our P, the two P tags that we have inside the HTML. So basically, what have we done? We just demonstrate how you can build a new paragraph from scratch and then slip it into the top of a div container, placing it directly before the first existing paragraph. And so in the process, we've been able to touch base some of the things that are already built into the language for our use. For example, you see that when you use a standard command like append child that we have here, JavaScript always throw your new element at the very bottom of the list. So by default, when you use this method, JavaScript will throw your new element at the very bottom of the list. It's just like okay, just think of this method, InsertBefore method, like cutting in line. So it lets you point to an existing element on the page and say, oh, put my new element right here, immediately in front of this one. So you can specify where you want your element to, to show or display in your page. Now, our document.createElement, which is what we have here, is what generates a raw floating p tag in the browser memory and populates it with the text, this is new. So this creates the paragraph and then this populates it with text. Now, the const element, get element by ID that you have here, and then const child, these two that we have here, they grab references to the parent container using their ID, and then the exact reference element that will act as our positioning anchor. And lastly, the element.InsertBefore that takes in parameters of the paragraph and a child executes the movement. So it commands the parent container to slot the new floating paragraph directly over the head of the anchor elements. Now, if you look at our code, what do you think is going to happen if our anchor element is not existent or empty? For example, if this is not existing, I will pass it none. What do you think is going to happen? Now you can see that our paragraph is now showing at the bottom of the list. So you can see that the InsertBefore give us exact positional layout control when adding elements to the page. So let me revert it back to child so that it will go up. And so this positional layout was achieved using the InsertBefore method that you can see. Then this method requires two parameters. We have the parent, InsertBefore, which is the we have the new elements that we want to pass in, and also the existing anchor element. And finally, if the reference anchor element is evaluated as null, like I just did now, so the new element defaults to appending at the bottom. Now, we've been able to see that the summary of this exercise or this example is that it shows us how we can build a new paragraph from scratch and slip it into a positional layout in our existing parent container.